Alright, so we are back once again, and today is going to be a little bit of a hybrid video. We're going to be going over this video, or this game I played in the Holland, I think a day or two ago. A very interesting and a very unique game, because it's a pretty decent back and forth between myself and the enemy team. Well, I should say my team and the enemy team, but again, you can never truly rely on your own team in World of Warships. But we're also going to be discussing the interesting decision of Wargaming to introduce submarines into ranked, and going over that a little bit too. But just to start off this game, we are obviously playing the Holland, which means that we're going to have to stay a little bit wide on the flank. We don't want to push immediately into the cap, get maybe radar die. That wouldn't be ideal. The Holland is best served getting wide, landing torpedoes, being a nuisance basically on the flanks, and not allowing enemy BBs or cruisers to ever have like a minute to rest. So with that being said, we're pushing wide. I don't want to push straight ahead like I did just now, or I was going to, because again, this map is relatively small and radar is always an imminent threat. Obviously our Smolensk doesn't think so, so he's going to push through the middle of the gap and into a Benson. Usually plays like this don't actually work. Usually he's going to get smacked in the face, but on the odd occasion, if the enemy team isn't really expecting it, or expects my team to play well, they can get away with it. As luck would have it, the enemy Holland, sadly, a tier 8 European DD, is no real match for a tier 10 DD, and he had basically the same idea I had, except I'm 2 tiers higher than him, which means that, yeah, my shells just passed right through that. Anyways, which means he comes out on the losing end of this trade. With that being said though, and while we watch the Holland die, I want to talk a little bit about Wargaming's decision to include submarines into ranked battles. Now, if you've been watching my channel for any period of time, you'll realize that I've been playing a lot of ranked, shall we say, almost exclusively. It's one of the few game modes left in the game where I feel like, you know, individual skill can have a significant impact on actually winning the game. I know a lot of people don't think that, but just the 7v7 playstyle, or not even 7v7 playstyle, the 7v7 format allows a lot more power and a lot more control over the game than you would with just straight up 12v12. Because right now, my other flank on the map could be completely obliterated within like 2 to 3 minutes, and I would have nothing to do. Suddenly I'd be faced in a scenario where, you know, we'd be 5v12 or 5v11, which has happened actually surprisingly commonly, and my game would basically be over. My win rate would be metaphorically tanked, because we would lose that game and I'd have no say in the matter. Whereas in a 7v7 scenario, losing 1 or 2 ships is not the end of the world. You still have very strong impact. So when Wargaming first announced that they were going to introduce submarines into ranked as a test, which is even more mind-boggling, because surely the competitive game mode would be the last scenario that you would actually introduce into submarines into. So on that front, it made absolutely no sense. I know I do understand the argument that the majority of the player base does play random battles, and you know, I can sympathize with that to an extent. And I'm definitely not saying that random battles should be having submarines in them, even before they're being fully tested. But just plonking them into ranked battles and just going, let's see what happens, guys, is mind-blowing to me. Not only that, but nice too. Not only that, but what happens in the scenario where sometimes it can happen, where you have 1 CV in a ranked game, and then you have a submarine in a ranked game. Sometimes you can, I don't know if they're going to limit it to only 1 submarine. I haven't actually looked that deeply into it. Maybe I should have before I actually made a video, but anyways, let's just speculate. Instead of having 1 submarine in the game, what if they have 2? So that's already 3 ships taken up, okay? And then you have, what, left 4 ships on an enemy team? How sparse is the actual map going to be to actually play the game? How many ships are actually going to be on? You're going to have 4 ships, 1 destroyer, 2 cruisers and a battleship? What kind of game is that? That's no longer World of Warships. That's just basically where's Waldo? Like, let's go run around the map looking for the enemy team, because God knows there's that few of them that we're not even going to find them. It's truly mind-boggling. Now, that being said, maybe they limit it to 1 submarine per team, which seems relatively reasonable, and so, you know, the act of just having so few ships on either team and denigrating the game to basically nothingness is not that big of a deal. But again, I can see scenarios like this popping up fairly consistently, and I don't even think a Wargame is aware of this fact, that when you remove ships from the game, the hole that they leave is much bigger than just the fact that they're a ship. It's just basically entire areas of the map that are it blows my mind. It blows my mind, just the ignorance. It's like the maps are big enough as they are, and now you're just going to remove ships from them. I don't understand it. But anyways, we do line up the Thunder, and it's something I like to point out in the European DDs. I I like to point this out in torpedoes especially. Your main goal in torpedo boats is to get as close as possible to the enemy ships before you launch torpedoes. So here's a prime example. You want to get, my detection range is around 6 kilometers here, so you want to get within that 6.3, 6.2, 6.1, and then launch the torpedoes. Especially with how fast the Holland torpedoes are, it gives the enemy ships very, very little time to actually react, and so it's much easier to get those stealth strikes, and we get 151,000k with 12 minutes on the clock. Unfortunately, as luck would have it, Cyclone does bump in, and I can make another video on cyclones in and of themselves, but yeah, well, maybe that's for another day. Actually, imagine this scenario. Imagine there's CVs in a ranked game. Imagine there's 2 submarines and then a cyclone blows in. That's 20 minutes of my life I'm never getting back. In all honesty, the game is just going to be so empty that it's going to be really, really, I'm going to say awkward because I can't think of a better word, and if I do think of a better word, it's going to be fairly aggressive. But yeah, I don't know. I think obviously it's just a test and we can see how they fare, but in their current state, I don't see how submarines can be introduced into the game and have a fun element, shall we say. I think it's going the route of the CVs, but just less potent. That being said though, this game is a bit wishy-washy. Again, we're winning this flank, but we're down 2 caps. Again, points aren't really a main consideration at this point in the game. We're still trying to figure out who has the upper hand because it's fairly even. We are launching torps at the Vladivostok, but these are very much blind torpedoes because, again, cyclones, and we can't actually see the enemy Vladivostok. The one benefit, though, of playing a destroyer, we do land 1 hit. The one benefit of playing a destroyer in cyclones is that your detection range is generally shorter than the enemy spotting range. And so you can play that 2 kilometer range advantage and, you know, actually land torpedoes. If anything, cyclones, especially for torpedo boats, tend to be a net benefit because it gives you that cover to actually creep up to enemy ships, and then when you do get spotted, you do have that 2 kilometer buffer zone to actually orientate your ship so you don't actually accidentally get spotted and you don't accidentally blow your concealment, and you can adjust your ship turn and you're within range to launch some very, very, very potent torpedoes, which is always nice. That being said, we do get 3 kills up to 161,000 damage. So at this point, being a good DD player, we go for the cap and not pushing back into the middle and trying to help on the other flank. We will do that, but first things first, we don't want the points to get completely out of control, so we always go for the cap. It's easy XP, easy free XP, and easy credits. Unfortunately though, our Fenyang is under Veneto, I'm not good at Italian, I can barely speak English, decide to die, which is a bit unfortunate. Because although on the top of the screen it may look as though we have, you know, even team configurations, it's not actually even, because on the other side of the map most of their ships are actually, you know, overloaded. And so the game is actually maybe 3v5 at the minute, because both their DDs are probably looking down the Amagi, looking down the Pomeran, looking down the Thunder, which just rammed in Alaska, and very, very, very quickly going to make short work of them, as DDs tend to do. Again, I'm assuming here that I don't know. I'm assuming I'm playing the ship, and I'm just inferring from the minimap. Let's look what happened. The Missouri pushes into B and gets the Elbin spotted in radar. Of course, I'm way too far away to actually be effective, and even if I was in range, 1v1ing a Elbin in a Holland is a bit of a sticky scenario. Not something I'd gladly agree to. So that being said though, we do have the H people. We're going to push into the middle of the map, see if we can secure B cap. See, I didn't say I was good at English. And if we can, then we very, very, very carefully push across. Again, even at this state of the game though, look at the enemy ships. It's going to be very, very difficult for me to actually be, you know, effective, because they have things like the Moskva, they have things like the Elbin, which can mess me up pretty hard. And although the Benson isn't much of a threat, it's just another DD, and I don't like 1v1ing DDs in the Holland. The gunpowder is much more potent than the Shimikazes, even though I think the Shimikaze gets a bit of a hard rep in terms of like being able to stand up for itself. It's definitely not as bad as I think a lot of people make it out to be, but even so, torpedo boats are just generally ships you don't want to be engaging 1v1s in. And so the Amagi goes down. Now at this point, I'm still a bit worried, because it's basically a 2v1 on that other side of the map again. Again, it's very easy for this game to look even when it's actually much more distorted than it currently is, or it currently looks. The Moskva and the Monarch are going to probably kill the Pomeran, and now my mind, as you can see in chat, switches. It doesn't go from, you know, how can I kill the Monarch, how can I kill the Moskva, how can I get caps, how can I kill them. My main goal right now is to kill ships like the Benson, kill ships like the Elbin, and if I can get a DD advantage, then we can really, really, really start to, you know, assert ourselves over the game. Moskva is not that much of a threat, because generally when you think of Moskva radar, you don't think of the radar as being the actual threat. You think of what comes with the radar. It comes with shells from the Elbin, it comes with shells from the Monarch, it comes with shells from the Benson. So if you can eliminate the Benson, the Elbin, these ships, the radar, sure, the Moskva can hit me with 2 to 3 salvos, but if I'm in any way competent, if I even have my hands available and be able to use them, then I can pretty much dodge at least 1 maybe salvo, or at least half a salvo, and it won't go down before the radar clocks off. So the radar in and of itself is not a significant threat. It's what comes with the radar, you know? It's the same with being scared in the dark. It's not the dark that scares people, it's what's in the dark, you know? It's the murder in the dark. It's the, you know, I can't think of anything else, but it's what's in the dark that's scary. So we look, we examine, we try and find the Benson, we don't, and we do find the Monarch though, and we launch some torpedoes. Now at this point, I'm very cognizant of physical distance, 6.1, 6.2, we're still getting that close range. I'm in 2 minds here. I really want to get the cap, but at the same time I don't want to expose myself to, you know, British BB-HE, which is extremely potent. And so I keep myself between myself and the Monarch, at least an island. So again, even if I do get radared, I'm very much capable of dodging or not getting too much damage dealt in my direction. That being said though, now I can see the Moskva is about to come around that island, so if we can get an advantage here, even if I get radared by the Moskva, if we kill the Monarch, it's a net win here, because I don't mind eating a salvo from the Moskva, because I can quickly duck behind that island and get away with it. Now as luck would have it, the Benson does get some unlucky torps on me. Well, lucky for him, unlucky for me. And we basically engage in a 1v1. Now at this point, the game is very much not in our favor. We do get a fire on the Moskva, which is nice to have, but again, it's not really enough to actually, you know, swing things in the Missouri's favor. And I type here Ram. Ramming here isn't a good idea. I have 10k HP, although we have 3 caps, the Elbin and the Benson can very easily flip that in their favor. Now again, remember, I'm aware of the Benson being low, and I'm aware of the Elbin being relatively low from chat messages earlier in the game, but I don't know how low. So at this point, I need to kill this Moskva and hope that the Missouri survives. But as luck would have it, the Missouri gets a monster of a shot off, and the Moskva goes down. Now what this means is that this potentially lost game completely flips on its head, and we're basically in a very strong position because we have control of the caps. We have a 2v2 scenario where I can spot and the Missouri can follow up as long as he stays behind me, or, you know, I provide him cover. And as luck would have it, we get knowledge of the Benson with the vital information on how much HP he has, which makes the rest of the game fairly simplistic. And so, I'm guessing you can probably concur how this rest of this game goes. I go hunting down the Benson. He very quickly dies because I have 10k HP and he has 1k HP. And well, that pretty much sums it up. Because even if the Missouri somehow dies to the Elbin, we have cap advantage. We're constantly growing a point lead, and once the Benson dies, we're going to extend that lead, and it's going to be very, very easy for us to win the game, because I'm not going to lose that much HP killing a Benson on 1000 HP, and the Elbin is already low, again from chat messages that we went through earlier in the game. That being said though, submarines in ranked are probably an abomination, especially if there's multiple submarines. If there's one, I can see it working a little bit better, but it's going to be interesting to see how this works with CVs. If they're in the same game, it's going to make the actual surface ships feel like very rare, which is kind of weird to say. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this semi-commentary, semi-gameplay, and yeah, fun little tidbit though. The Missouri has 4 kills right now. I have 4 kills right now. Basically, this is a hunt to see who gets the Kraken, as luck would have it. But as you can see, the timer is ticking down, and we have about 50 seconds left on this. So, will we get it? Will anyone get a Kraken? I'll speed it up, and until next time, I'll see you all in the next one.